And it made me think more and more about the importance of your stories, all our stories. We all have stories that must be told. I began to look at some of the research around surviving trauma, because many of our stories get lost after trauma. We clam up, we seize up. And there's a lovely book, The How of Happiness, that touched me. And the author says that in the post-traumatic growth research, it demonstrates that we have 3 different ways of functioning when faced with trauma. And the research has proven that we can either, the first one is, it's coming, it just ran away at that moment. We can either survive, or some people manage to move on from survival and recover. And yet others can move on and thrive. In my book, Beyond the Veil, on page 117, I know exactly where it is, there's a letter from Joy Cowley, and she wrote it to me 3 weeks after my little girl's brain hemorrhage and stroke. And I quote, "The day will come when you will see that what has happened to Mary has been all gift, not only to Mary, but to you as family." It took me 20 years to agree with Joy. 20 years. And I can now see that she is so right, that we can look back and see what can come out of these challenging experiences. And people say to me today, well, Pauline, how do you cope? How do you cope with all these things that have happened? And for me, maintaining my peace of mind is now hugely important. And by that I mean when something happens, to stand back and to be still, and not to get all panicky and rush and talk to everybody about it. To be still. The second thing I do, and I'm very strong on this, is I only mix with positive people. And that is why you are all here today. And I thank you for coming. I don't mix with negative people. The third thing I do is to know with absolute clarity that there will be surprises in the future that are good and surprises in the future that are not so good. And that is what is. Last week, I went to Wellington to catch up with one of my sons who's been out at sea. And Luke is 29, and I was very excited about seeing him. And while we were together, he said, "Mum, do you think the best years of your life have been and gone?" I'm going to share his other questions with you. You don't have to answer them, but I will answer them. I looked at him and I said, "Well, no, I don't think that at all, Luke. You might find that hard to understand at 29, but I actually feel I have a stronger, clearer direction now than I have had before." "Oh. Mum, do you think you were of more value to society 10 years ago than you are now?" And I said, "Well, if we look at the television that focuses on youth and beauty, but I've got to tell you, Luke, that I think I am of much more value now because I have had so many experiences and so much learning." "Oh, well, Mum, do you feel really frustrated that you've got all this learning but you can't get out there and give it to people?" And I said, "Well, Luke, while you've been at sea, I've been setting up little groups and helping people to find the gold in their lives and helping people to find new projects. Oh. He thought for a while and then he said, is there anything that you wish you had known 40 years ago that would have made a big difference to your life? And I said, yes, there is. I wish I hadn't tried to live up to other people's expectations. And I wish I hadn't tried to please those in authority. Oh, he said, well, is there anything you've learnt later in life that you wished you had known when you were 25? It was a long coffee this day, I can tell you. And I said, yes, there is. I wish I had known about the power of my own thoughts to create my own happiness or unhappiness. Just because I had a thought, it doesn't mean it's true. So then he looked at me and he said, well, Mum, I've got one more question. Imagine someone is about to be born. They don't know who their parents are going to be, and they don't know where they will be born, and they're scared. And you've only got a couple of minutes with them. What would you say? And I said to him, I will answer that question in a quote, with a quote. You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. Thank you.